Superhero comics are filled with some truly amazing characters, larger-than-life heroes that uplift and inspire us, terrifying villains that fascinate and astonish us. Then you have the rest, heroes and villains who go through so many damn changes so often that it's ultimately really hard to keep track of who's in the costume. That's why we have a show like this, everyone. That's why we have Secret Identity. And on today's show, we're taking a closer look at Cheetah, who, as far as most of the world out there is concerned, is the only Wonder Woman villain, or at least the only one people seem to know because, well, she was in the Legion of Doom on the Super Friends, of course. Which, hey, say what you want about that show and how corny it was even at the time, it still manages to cast one hell of a cultural shadow. Now, if you're watching this video, then you probably already know that it was Saturday Night Live alum Kristen who was ultimately chosen to bring the very bad kitty to life on screen for the first time, and honestly, I do not envy that kind of task. Because as I'm going to attempt to explain to you over the next little bit, the history of the Cheetah is super weird, and so are the many comic book women and at least one dude who have filled the spotted costume over the years. I should also probably note that this is our first time covering a DC character here in Secret Identity, and the problem with this universe is unlike Marvel, where for better or worse everything is a straight line. In DC we get crises and retcons every 5 to 10 years or so. To say nothing of the multiple Earths, so do try and keep up, and I promise I will attempt to explain myself as we go on. Now, the first woman to squeeze her way into the cat's pajamas of Cheetah was named Priscilla Rich. She appeared in Wonder Woman number 6 all the way back in 1943. Priscilla was a spoiled, wealthy DC debutante who turned to a life of crime after Wonder Woman showed her up at a party. Geez, and they say women hold grudges over the smallest things. I mean, it was the 40s, right? Well, okay, it's a little bit more complex than I'm making it out to be. You see, Priscilla had a split personality, one that told her to take her true form, that of a cheetah, which she did by fashioning a supersuit out of the cheetah skin rug she just happened to have lying around. Friggin' rich people, am I right? Now, like all bold and dangerous jungle hunters, Cheetah planned her revenge on Wonder Woman by framing her for a bank robbery and planting a bunch of stolen money in her apartment. I mean, it's an original plan, that's for sure, and you gotta remember at this point in history, she doesn't actually have any cat powers. She's just a crazy lady running around in cat pajamas. The Cheetah would continue to bedevil Wonder Woman for the next few years, and when World War II rolled around, she even tried her hand at being a saboteur selling military secrets to the Japanese. Again, none of this actually has anything to do with being a cheetah, but hey girl, you get your money, I understand. And as I mentioned before, she also got to be the version that people know from the Super Friends cartoon, which certainly has to count for something. Priscilla would also be a founding member of another supervillain group, Villainy Inc., which comprised a bunch of different Wonder Woman foes. It was after that the Crisis on Infinite Earths event would come around and Priscilla would find herself deleted from continuity and never really mentioned or seen again, meaning I guess that she was a cat without 9 lives. Now, the second golden age of comics Cheetah wouldn't actually appear until the 1980s. She was a woman named Deborah Domaine. Get it, mane, like how big cats have manes? She was another bored rich lady and the niece of Priscilla Rich. However, unlike her aunt, Deborah was actually a good person to start with. She cared a lot about environmental causes and even ran a conservation group off her private yacht. Because even if you are a woke-as-hell eco-crusader, that doesn't mean you still can't flaunt that fat yacht cash, son. It was during her work as a regular old planeteer Deborah met Wonder Woman during an oil spill cleanup. The two actually became fast friends and did all sorts of gal pal things like, have showers in the same room and drink cocoa. Unfortunately, this friendship was not built to last, as the clammy hand of fate had other ideas. You see, it's around this time Aunt Priscilla took ill, and before she died, she wanted to reveal to her niece her double life as the Cheetah. Deborah would end up finding her supervillain stash. She didn't want to use any of it herself, but at the same time, too, the Cult of Cobra was looking for some new recruits. You all remember Cobra with a K, right? One of the dozens of evil snake-worshipping cults that prevail fiction, but unlike G.I. Joe, these guys don't have a cool battle cry, nor a cool logo like the band Cobra Cult. The cult figured that if Deborah wouldn't play ball and be their new Cheetah, they decided to brainwash her into accepting her furry family legacy. The new Cheetah would get a slightly updated costume complete with brand new chrome claws for cutting. She would do some missions for the cult, which, as you may have guessed, brought her into conflict with Wonder Woman. Deborah would even manage to steal the lasso of truth from Diana, which is pretty impressive. Now in the number 3 slot we have the big dog, or cat I guess as the situation would warrant, Barbra Ann Minerva, who premiered in Wonder Woman number 27 from 1987. Barbara, like the previous 2 Cheetahs, came from money, her being a wealthy heiress. She also just happened to be an accomplished archaeologist with a particular passion for one African tribe and their magical cheetah guardian. It was during a research trip Barbara and her team came under attack by a group of marauders. To defend herself, the tribe's chief offered her a ritual that would transform her into said cheetah guardian. Too bad the chief has some real memory problems because he forgot to mention that you kinda sorta have to be a virgin for the ritual to work. And Barbra Ann, well, she liked to have fun, let's put it that way. And what was supposed to be an amazing blessing became a horrible hairball-laden curse. Barbra Ann Minerva would hold the rare distinction of being the first cheetah to actually have animal-human hybrid powers and not just be another lady in a suit. And speaking of ladies in cat suits, Barbara would also be the first cheetah to diversify her hero portfolio and battle the likes of Catwoman on the side. Must fight urge to make cat fight joke. I am slightly better than this. Now, in these early stories, this version of Cheetah actually coveted Wonder Woman's golden lasso of truth and wanted to add it to her collection of artifacts, but over time they would slowly drop this aspect of Cheetah's character altogether, and she would stick around mainly to just try and prove how much better she was than Wonder Woman. Barbara would also serve on several villainous teams around this time, including the Injustice League, Checkmate, and the Secret Society of Supervillains. The final and probably most important thing to note about Barbara's time as the Cheetah is that she didn't always see eye to eye with the ancient god that gave her powers, and that god's name was... you know what, I'm not even gonna try and say that. And hey, guess what? Because DC Comics are a spreadsheet nightmare of reboots, retcons, and crises, Barbara isn't just the third person to become the Cheetah, she's also the first too. How the Hello Kitty does that make any sense? Well, allow me to explain. You see, during the year 2011, the big new publishing initiative at DC Comics was The New 52. Basically, comics went back to square one and everyone got updated and streamlined origins. And in this newest telling of the tale, Barbra Ann Minerva was raised in an all-woman hippie commune, very similar to the Amazons of Themyscira. This new version of Cheetah would also appear in the pages of a Justice League story and not Wonder Woman, because Brian Azzarello was writing the Wonder Woman book at that period and he had no time for supervillains, as the Wonder Woman book under his tenure had become a sword and sandals horror story. Now, as with most things from the New 52 initiative, not a lot of these new character ideas actually ended up sticking around, and Cheetah was no different. She would eventually revert back to her old archaeologist heiress role, but they would actually take this opportunity to fold in some ideas from the Deborah Domaine era, wherein this time around Wonder Woman and Cheetah were actually friends before her fall to the dark side, making it all that much more personal when Diana has to fight her. I haven't seen the new movie yet at the time of this recording, but if I had to guess, Wonder Woman 1984 will probably be using this origin as the basis for the big screen Cheetah. Now hey, you all remember that plant god with the crazy name that I mentioned before who gave Barbra Ann Minerva all her powers? Well, one time he got pissed at her and decided that he's gonna give that power to another person, which leads us into Cheetah number 4, and the only man ever to wear the title, Sebastian Ballesteros.
He was as mean as he was Greek.
Sebastian, you see, was the lover of another big Wonder Woman foe, Circe the Sorceress, but he always wanted a little bit of power for himself, and he appealed to the evil god's ego by telling him that a male cheetah would be far superior to the one he had now. Chester Cheetah Bro's time as a villain would be unamazing. Mostly his biggest claim to fame was helping turn one of Wonder Woman's other friends to the dark side by making her the third version of the Silver Swan. And oh great, I just mentioned Silver Swan, which means I gotta make a video on her at some point too, don't I? Sebastian's time as a professional furry would come to an abrupt end when Barbra Ann was able to kill him while he was in his human form, from there proving her worth to the plant god in blood and making her the Cheetah once again. And all I can think is way to not break the glass ceiling for men as cat-themed supervillains. I mean, Thomas Blake can't just do it all on his own. You know, not every joke is gonna hit, and that joke was literally for an audience of one, and that audience was me. And so there you have it, everyone, the history behind every person who's ever used the secret identity of Cheetah. Were they all winners? No, but I must admit, taken together and after doing this research, I have far more respect for the legacy of Cheetah than I did when I started, and here's hoping some of these cool little flourishes make their way into the new movie. If there is another character with a crazy legacy you want to see me cover in a future video, tell me in the description down below and I might just get to it. And thanks for watching, everybody.